listen, I have like 10 minutes until I'm going to interview Melody, right? I'm very excited about it. Got some questions, some follow-ups from our interview 6 months ago where we discussed U.S. housing. She made some rather prescient calls, I think, and then some stuff I kind of want to press her on. So a little context, Melody Wright, I think, is one of the best writers on Substack about the housing market in America, and it's primarily because she travels around the country in person, goes door to door. She drives to these housing subdivisions. She talks to people. She has connections at every level of the real estate industry. She does not just like read a chart in the Wall Street Journal or something, or read a fucking headline and go, that's the update. She gets real boots in the ground information, and it allows her to have a more complete picture of what's going on in housing. So I really, really enjoy reading her updates on Substack, and we had a good interview with her about 6 months ago, and now I'm excited to find out what she says, what's going on now. Melody!
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us again on the stream.
Of course.
I was just giving the little intro that I do for your content, and I was saying how much I appreciate that you're one of the people that writes about the real estate industry that actually goes in person,
Yes.
to all these different subdivisions and different levels of the real estate industry and gets boots on the ground information. I wanted to open with a congratulations here because I looked back at our last interview, which was 6 months ago, and you said Q2 of this year we'd start to see rising foreclosures. This is Wall Street Journal, like a few days ago.
Yeah.
High housing costs are pushing foreclosures to a 6-year high, 26% jump. I mean, pretty accurate timing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And well, first of all, I mean, it's always tough to make a call in the future like that. And
Yeah.
especially publicly. So I'm super impressed with that. But I wanted to know because, in the larger context of American foreclosure history, it's still at relative lows. Like obviously it's rising. I'm wondering, is your indication that it's going higher from here, or is this where you saw it going? I'd like a...
Oh, no. This is just the trick. This is the beginning. It's starting as a trickle because, as you say very correctly, like we are at historic lows for foreclosures because of all the government intervention that we've had. But because of the restrictions they put on the FHA program in October, you knew that this was going to happen. And we were seeing people fell out of these loan modifications at record rates. And so this is just the beginning. What's going to happen from here, likely around June or July, we're going to have an even bigger uptick unless there's some kind of government intervention. And then by the time we round the corner to Q4 at the end of the year, foreclosures will be material unless there's some kind of government intervention. But it is definitely looking like it's going to play out that way. And then that's also just the beginning, honestly, because it's very confusing for people that don't understand mortgage and they don't understand default, and they get their idea of foreclosure from the movie everybody watches at Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah. Where it's like they're storming the bank and, everybody wants to take your house, and it is nothing like that.
Okay.
And since 2008, the loss mitigation, so that just means the banks are trying not to lose money. And that's what and the non-bank lenders, what everybody needs to understand is that if you foreclose, you're going to lose money. There's no scenario because on the bank side,
the bank is afraid of losing money if they foreclose. So they don't they don't want it to happen is what you're saying. They're trying to find out.
Because the government game is such that, so we know 85% of mortgages are held by some type of government agency. And the government game is, so these servicers, these big non-bank servicers like Rocket, UW, and when I say servicer, in mortgage, you have the people that originate your loan.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, they sell it in about 3 days, and then it goes to a servicer who pays for the right to take your payment. Because if they take your payment, they get a little spread, a little fee, a little juice.
But they're holding all the risk, right? The Rockets and they're holding your bad debt if you don't pay.
Yes, but no. So let's start with the but no, because these are all government backed, like 85%. And hardly anybody like these non-banks are in the private lending game. Now we have a whole bunch of that going on, but hardly any of them, they're in the government game because in their mind, this means they're fully protected because theoretically the agencies are supposed to pay all of your default costs. So that's going to be your attorney to prosecute the foreclosure. It's going to be getting the property in good shape to sell it. Could be an eviction, or they might need to, when it's vacant, as it will often be, they mow the yard every 30 days. They have to pay for that.
What you're supposed to do. I want to,
go ahead.
I have to, I'm not an expert and I want to make sure I'm
I
clarifying.
know. I'm sorry. Slow me down.
You're saying the government pays those costs in 85% of situations, or they don't?
They're supposed to.
Okay.
So what will happen is the servicer will say, "Oh, we mowed their yard 12 times. It's X amount of dollars." And you're supposed to be able to submit that claim to the government. But what typically happens, it's like any insurance company, they reject it like out of the gate, like, and then you have to
Oh, I
prove
see.
that you're
They
owed
don't
this
want to
money.
pay.
They don't wanna pay. They don't
Okay.
pay.
Yeah.
Like, and on FHA, they do not pay. Like, I used to manage what's called a claims department. It was the worst job of my entire career. We never saw a full payout on these loans. And so now on the FHA side, which is supposed to be for kind of first-time home buyers, but investors use that program a lot, they're supposed to pay everything. I have never in my entire career seen a full payout. So that should kind of tell you how it actually goes.
Okay.
But the Rockets of the world, United Wholesales, they weren't in this game last time. They were
2008.
very small. Yeah, like
Okay.
in the government game.
Okay, yeah.
They might have held a few government loans, but nothing material. But so what you had after the crisis last time, so all the legislation that came out after the crisis to keep it from happening again, haha. So the banks stopped lending. They just stopped doing mortgage lending. Now they would keep like a tiny little bit on their portfolio just to say to kind of keep the government at bay, really. But what happened is your Rockets, your Mr. Coopers, your Freedom Mortgages, they thought they were the smartest guys in the room. And they're like, we're going to get in on this government game. And of course, they're non banks, so they don't have deposits. And one of the ways that you can survive something like this is that you don't have to take out debt. You can use your deposits. That's what the bank can do.
Right.
But non-banks don't have that. The non-banks are they're in for a world of hurt that's about to begin. If a loan goes delinquent, they're going to go back to that servicer or that originator and say, you have to buy this loan back because you didn't dot an I on page 76 of the closing disclosure, blah,
They'll find
blah,
some
blah.
reason. They'll find some. Okay.
Correct. And this has already happened to some degree on the FHA book. And even in 22, 23, we were seeing it on the prime books, but they came out with a new modification, a new loss mitigation program, and that kind of stops. So the FHA was already under stress, like a huge stress, and was already like June of 23, you could see it, and they came out with another crazy program. But now it's happening due to layoffs and just increased costs for insurance and taxes.
Right.
And
I mean, this
energy
bottom end of
now.
the K, right, is just unable to make their payments.
So the bottom of the K can't, right?
Yeah.
They've been done for 2 years, like that. They're in serious trouble. So what you're now seeing is the creeping down from the top of the K and the creeping up. And so that middle borrower is we're starting to see early delinquency rise there, even with these loss mitigation programs. We're kind of following the same pattern where you're going to see the FHA peak first, and it has been super bad. It's 13% of the market, and it's already over 13% delinquent, which is insane. Okay. Like those are insane. Like if you look at the Fred schedule for mortgage delinquency, which they only track the banks,
Yeah.
it's like 1.76% or something like that. They don't have all this FHA because it's sitting at the
Right.
non-banks.
So all the mortgage lending has gone out of the banks since 2008.
Pretty much.
And so
Correct.
it's hiding the delinquency rise because people are looking.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making sure I understand.
And so if you think last time, a lot of the white collar layoffs were in the financial industry, right? I mean, it was like Wall Street, it was these guys, white collar, right?
Yeah.
Well, now what we're seeing are the tech layoffs. And these were a big deal because nobody could afford these homes except for people that were making those huge tech salaries,
Yeah, we saw Meta do 8,000, Oracle do 4. Yeah, a bunch of them all recently.
Yeah, and Amazon.
Yep.
And they don't seem to be done, right? Like, I mean, they just keep rolling. And so this is hitting so many areas very hard. Like, let's take somewhere like Dallas, Texas, where you had a ton of tech workers move from California, and because like, hey, I can buy a house for like $600,000. I'll be living like a king,
Yeah.
and they could afford it because they're big tech salary. Well, a lot of them got called back, right? They had to go back, and so they have to pay rent and a mortgage
Right.
because they aren't selling their homes. And then B, you lose your job, and how are you going to pay your mortgage? And especially when your tax gas and insurance and your electricity costs are going up and you don't have a job, and we know this is going to happen because any company that's looking at the headlines, it's not going to be like COVID where it's like, hey, we'll pay you $400,000 if you come be a software engineer here. It's going to be like, we'll give you 100 or something like that.
Yeah, the balance of power flipped a little bit with it.
Yeah. And so all that formation, that household formation, that pull forward demand is now reversing. The true foreclosure crisis will start accelerating next year, believe it or not, unless the government intervenes in some way to slow it down, which they probably will at some point.
Well, I want to hone in on that because you said it a couple of times, and that's the question I wanted to have. So you, in our last interview, mentioned that sometimes you stay up at night thinking of how they can try to save this, and couldn't at the time figure out rationale. What have they been doing in the past? Like, what are some of the government programs they've figured out to try and extend and pretend here or keep this going?
Well, recently none.
Okay.
But during COVID, it was this crazy. So let's take the FHA subprime again. It was called an advanced loan modification, and you could not pay your mortgage for 3 months. And this is after you had 18 months of forbearance, by the way. And you could go
20
and you
months,
could say
21 months free housing, bitch.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it gets much worse, much worse. So you're like, hey, I can't pay. They're like, oh, no problem. And back during the previous crisis, as a servicer, you had to re-underwrite that modification. You had to prove they could actually afford that modification. Well, in anticipation of the election, they removed all that stuff. Like it was just gone. And so what would happen is, and the servicer would say, no problem. And by the way, the servicer would get an incentive from the agencies if they did this. And so they give them this thing called a partial claim, which takes that balance and puts it at the back of the loan to be paid off when you sell the home. Because here's the thing, everybody thinks everybody has a ton of equity and they're going to be able to sell their homes. Problem is nobody's buying homes. But anyway, you put it at the back of the
price,
loan.
right? They all expect to be able to sell it at a higher price than they got it, so they can
100%.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's the same stupid thing all over again. But I can tell you I oversee client books still to this day, and I can tell you lots of people are not able to sell. And if they have to sell, they have to reduce the price and then, blah,
Yeah, I mean,
blah,
I'm
blah.
seeing, this is what I want to ask you as well, is about regional locations of this. But you're seeing like towns in Texas or Florida where every house seems to be on sale, and they're all doing price cuts, and none of them are moving.
Nobody's buying.
And then you can go to like, real estate subreddits where people are complaining that I have a house, I can't seem to move it. What's going on with the market? Yeah, I don't know. But what's interesting is that you don't really see the material price decreases that you'd expect with this much supply. And I was wondering if you could, like, why is that? Is that just a mental thing of no one's willing to crack yet, or what's going on?
Yeah, it is. I recently wrote a Substack called Stubbornness Understood because unfortunately, most of the boomers watch mainstream media and all they've heard about is an inventory shortage and home prices have skyrocketed and there's limited supply. So they are just hell bent, like they believe 100% that they're going to get their price. And let me give you just a quick anecdote because it's so important in times like this. Recently, I was talking to a gentleman. His dad was in a home, but they were trying to sell the house, and it's like a condo, but it was a good condo, good area. But the father would not, even though he's kind of in dementia, losing his mind, he would not cut his prices. And then two people sold next to him for much lower prices.
Oh.
He still will not cut because I know it's hard when we look at, we know the boomers own most of the properties.
Yeah.
It's hard, but if you think about it, this is their legacy. This is what they're leaving their children. It's also, unfortunately, they were given no favors to them in terms of they looked at their house as an investment because that's what the government told them to do. Yeah. I mean, it's literally called an investment in CPI. It's shelter, people. It's not, anyway.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's happened is that none of the improvements have been made because people can't afford it. And so and it's like, oh, there's a crack in the foundation. Oh, there's a, an issue with the roof, and buyers are like, "No."
I heard
So go
that
ahead.
the number of, like, last minute buyer
Cancellations.
cancellations, like, they yeah,
Mhm.
it's, like, never been or it's, like,
It's
highest
the
been in
highest
years.
ever.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
in the past couple months, like,
yeah.
yeah. And so Redfin has reported there are more sellers than buyers now, yet there are still people out there screaming there's a housing shortage. And I want to be clear, there is a shortage of affordable housing because it's mispriced and misallocated, but there is no shortage of housing. And people will say, "Well, what about the Northeast?" I was like, "Uh-huh, give me a town." And I'll tell you because it's also a demographic story. It's a huge demographic story because the boomers just don't own the primary houses, they own the rentals too. So you go to any town in the Northeast, somewhere like Boston, New York, etc., the owner occupancy is super low because most people rent in those places. Well, what's going to happen is these boomers age out, which I think we talked about last time. We know 15.6 million will leave us by, 2035, and then another 26 million by 2050. So there's programs like foreclosure.com, our property radar, where you can go and you can look at the pre-probate notices. And what's a pre-probate notice? That's where a death flag has been raised on a property. Like, so in credit reporting,
What's a death
if
flag?
if an entity, let's say a servicer or someone gets a death certificate from a former homeowner, like so a family member has sent it in, they will then report that back to credit. Like, there's been a death here on this. And so these probate properties are just every single city just going up, 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 up. And now, why aren't we seeing like a ton in the Northeast right now? Well, because probate takes a very long time. It can take 6 months to 3 years. I had a friend just 4 months ago win an auction for a probate property, like it had been, under a trustee for 3 years. And he got a great deal. I mean, it was awesome. So, this is for people looking right now and want, like, are just, auctions are really some of the best places to look because they're not going to come through a regular MLS because the estate often owes money. And another thing that's crazy is like Medicare, if they owe anything to them, they'll come and take the property. So
And will they
it's
auction it? Like, if they own
and then
Medicare?
they auction
Okay,
it.
so you're
Yeah.
getting, I assume, a deal.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're getting a deal. You're getting a deal. At this auction a few months ago, there were investors there, but they didn't bid. And my friend who got it for 270. He just got his tax assessment. It assessed for 555.
Oh, wow.
Now there's issues there, of course, because all of these municipalities want those higher assessments. Because what do they get with a higher assessment? They get more property
Right.
tax. And so that's what's happening all over. People like, especially in Texas, like, look, just down the street, this house sold for 100,000 less than what you're assessing my property for. And the municipalities are like, we don't care. But I have friends down in Texas, like, really fighting this issue. And you can go in, and my friend and I are going to go dispute his assessment. And you can do that, but it's a whole process,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, they don't have an
But
incentive
yeah,
to be fast with the change. Yeah.